Welcome to our podcast From the Ground Up, where we interview startup founders exploring their journeys, their successes, challenges, and lessons learned. We hope you'll be inspired in discovering what it takes to build a thriving startup. I'm your host, Jake here in Villarreal, and here with us today we have Raed Khawaja, the founder and CEO of Open. Raed, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jake. Thank you. Excited to be here.
So Open is a mobile app and a software company that resides in Venice, California. Raed Khawaja is not just the leader of the company, but prior to this, he was also at Jive, a data analytics startup, and e-commerce at PepsiCo. Before we dive in here, Raed, I'm just curious, walk us through a little bit about your education and what really brought you into the world of building a startup and really technology.
Sure. Yeah. The education started really in a meandering fashion and arrived at econ as a major, if we want to use kind of college as a jumping off point. I was interested in the liberal arts. I was interested in the more technical side of things. And I thought econ would give me the ability to kind of straddle both conversations. I was always interested in the macro and how the world worked, but then also interested in the micro of how shit actually got done. And so I think econ gave me a nice balance there. You can poke holes in that, but it's basically how I saw it. But yeah, that was kind of the formal education. But the real education and the training definitely started as I started to navigate career choices and, took on work experiences that really offered me the opportunity to have really a process of elimination, if you will. I was really curious, how are things made and how are things delivered and how are things marketed and how is it all capitalized? And so it all felt really big for me coming out of school. And so I figured, hey, let's not try to know exactly which part of it that I want to work on, but rather get as broad of exposure as possible. And so whether it was working for, banks or big CPG and retail, or, getting more and more engaged with the technology that kind of transformed all of this into modern life, that's kind of how I, took on my education formally, and then how I navigated my career from there.
That's great. Is Open your first startup, or did you build companies early on? A lot of people we talk to were founders. Really, they didn't define themselves as an entrepreneur at 8 or 10 or 12 years old, but they were selling products to their friends or services to their relatives. What's your earliest experience of entrepreneurship?
Yeah. Wow. It's funny, as you were asking that question, I kept digging into, oh yeah, that was one thing, but there was a thing before that I even did that would probably qualify. So if it's interesting, maybe I'll hit a couple of them. My earliest memory comes from, I was really into consumer electronics, which is what I call it now, but I don't know what I would have called it back then. And I kind of, for some odd reason, had something of a Palm Pilot or something like that while I was in junior high. I had saved up. I don't know what I had done, but my days were so busy that I needed to organize them in a Palm Pilot or some sort of PDA like that. And then a mini disc player had come out, and I was really interested in recording all sorts of content. And I was interested in not only listening to comedy, but also listening to music. And I needed to figure out a way, because I didn't have any resources to have both, is to unload the PDA on somebody so that I could go buy the Palm Pilot. And so that's like my earliest memory. I look back and I'm like, how did I sell somebody in junior high that they needed something that I was so sure that I didn't need myself? So that's the earliest memory. But one that's that I look back at more endearingly is that, there was something that I used to run, and this also might have been, kind of in that same age range. It was called Jukebox Lunch. and I said, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could listen whatever music was playing during our lunchtime? I thought was awful or not." And I was like, "Wouldn't it be interesting if we could listen to the music that we wanted to listen to while having lunch?" Um, and then I was like, "How am I going to get uh, the school administration to approve me basically playing the music I want to play? And also, how will people kind of contribute to the idea of what we want to play? And how can this all feel like not something that's profiteering, but rather something everyone can feel good about in the process?" And so, Lunch was born. I recorded a bunch of music on a bunch of CDs, and I set up a sound system. And every lunch there was a different cause that the money would be donated to, but you could come up and request a song, and we would play that song during lunch, and we were raising money while doing it. So that's kind of the early stuff. And so yeah, and there's so many examples after that, but even things that don't show up on the resume. I worked on a men's skincare line when I was in my late teens, with a buddy, and he ended up going on and kind of growing that and selling that, and spent over a decade working on that. But I helped start that with him, when I was 18 or 19. And these are all things that don't show up on the resume, right? But they're the morsels that kind of create the energy and the excitement about what it means to do something from scratch and have a vision about something, and how having it come to life and the joy that comes with that.
Yeah, that's fascinating to understand the story behind the story,
Yeah.
which is really helps prepare you for whatever you build today. Now you've went out and you've built Open now, which you're growing and scaling, and it's funded and it's
Yeah.
doing well. Um, Talk to us about who don't know
Yeah.
what Open is about, what it does, and how it works.
Sure. Yeah, it's at its highest levels. We think about what happens at Open and as a way of living. It, on a modality level, or kind of the what is made up of the offering, practically speaking, is we have experiences that combine breath work, movement, meditation, sound, and we get at this whole mind body equation, mind body spirit equation, when we really do it well. And and so practically, we have an app, and we have a physical studio now in Venice Beach, the first of many, I hope. um, and we offer experiences around those practices. And why I say it's a way of living is, no doubt, when you're engaged with any one of the experiences, whether you're doing so digitally or in person, we like to think you're kind of training for life. But the real work happens when you come out of training, right? And you take what you've trained for, and you apply it on your everyday life. And something that's core to Open's philosophy and our perspective on the content at large is that it's not enough just to practice. It's not enough to just engage with the various tools and technologies that can have these positive impacts on your well-being. It's important to analyze, observe, understand the theory or the wisdom of life that is really the thing that acts as the wrapper to the experience that we're having here. And so it's really combining wisdom and practice in a novel way. And the practices, we like to think that we have a really honed understanding of, not only them individually, but how they can work really powerfully in concert with one another.
So your platform, a mobile app, and also in studio if you want to go, I imagine it as an application that you can do online with a coach or with a teacher, and you're going through a process in a session.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a lot of companies out there that do similar applications in healthcare and different teachings. You're going to do 1 million sessions, and that's a lot of volume. It's also a lot of people that may not even know what Open is. I want to take it back a little step before this. When you talk about breath work and well being, what does that really mean? Because we breathe to live.
Right.
And we also can breathe to feel good. And sometimes we breathe when we're not feeling good,
Yeah.
faster than we should. What is breath work? Define that for us.
Yeah, I think breath work is the conscious manipulation of your breath. It's actively engaging with your breath and kind of pointing to it, do this and do that, if you will, to oversimplify, right? Um, and when we say breath work, we're not saying that you're the opposite would be passively observing, right? As you might do in traditional meditation, right? And so you're taking your breath and you're voluntarily kind of directing your breath one way or another. Now, depending on how you direct it, is your breathwork technique, and depending on which technique you're orienting towards or what ratios you're working for, what's so powerful about breathwork and how it works is that it turns out that this thing that we do all the time, naturally, as you said, um, and you can actually modulate it to, you can, literally as a lever, take your breath into an upregulation or a downregulation, and that can kind of determine whether you're putting yourself into a parasympathetic state or a sympathetic nervous system state, right? And so we literally have a switch to our autonomic nervous system, and it's right here under our nose, in and out of our mouth. And so it's this really powerful means of adjusting the experience you're having in life on a physiological level. This isn't woo, right? Um, and so yeah, that's what breath work is in its most base sense.
And it's not just breath work, it's meditation, some other services that you provide in sessions. But what's the benefit of really honing in on your breath work? I want to just keep on that topic a little bit.
Yeah.
That you can get from going through your company's courses or sessions, and what's the end goal? What's the outcomes you're really trying to provide for your users?
Sure. One thing we try to do is look, there's all sorts of end goals. And then depending on who you are and what you're experiencing in life, the this vast spectrum of modalities, none of which we invented ourselves, right? We're aggregators, we're curators. But depending on what you have going on in your life, which is, you might be an entrepreneur that has some goals and you're trying to build resiliency of mindset, and you have these really audacious goals that you're looking to achieve. You could be somebody that's dealing with something a lot more acute and in the moment and stressful, or or you might be feeling lonely, um, and so, or you're somebody that has struggle sleeping, and you have a lot on your mind at night. And so I won't take all our time in playing out all the versions of the human experience that people are playing out there. The reality is there's this really broad toolkit that people can engage with depending on what it is that is on the other side of their rainbow. Um, and this toolkit, these tools can help you, address them. And so what we try to do is actually describe the starting line rather than the inputs. And we create a little bit of benefit of the doubt that our audience has been more educated than ever about the many benefits of things like meditation. Maybe breathwork is more nascent and less understood, but certainly fitness and exercise, and everyone knows what that can do for your mood and your body and your longevity and all these things, right? And so that's all there, and that's all, clarity of thought, clarity of mind, that's all there in terms of what you can hope to achieve. But what we try to center and ground as a studio, as a brand, is that, hey, it's really about taking stock uh, and having awareness of your present moment, having a sense of your diagnostic of where am I right now, and what is it that I hope to achieve as I engage with these various practices. Um, so yeah, that's maybe how I would describe what you would engage with at Open.
I mean, there's clearly a need for it. We talked a little bit about this briefly a few weeks ago. I grew up surfing, and for me, It's
Yeah.
not just a movement of your body, but it's, in a lot of ways, you feel like you're closer to nature, and you are in a different state of mind when you're out in the water, and ultimately you come back feeling just a different energy in a mindset. So for me, that's like a meditative way of moving and exercising and really becoming spiritual in some ways too.
Mm.
Outside of being close to the ocean, if there's other options to do what would make me feel like that, this sounds to me like a great option to think about. And it's also something that a lot of other people are thinking about too, including your co-founders, which, if you look on paper, look amazing. Your CTO, Peter, was the first engineer at DoorDash. For him to leave that to help build what you're creating now, there's obviously a real desire to do that, but also see the future and the vision of it. And also, if I'm pronouncing the name right, and you tell me if this is accurate, Minaj,
That's correct. Yeah.
he was also is also part of your team and held multiple roles at Lululemon, and as an ambassador as well of promoting meditation and mindfulness worldwide. So it sounds like on paper you've got the dream team to really build something great. Um, what's the market look like for this service and this product? There's many different versions out there, but as you carve out your niche, what was it that you were able to attract the right people with the vision you have to really be part of the journey?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. And I'm so glad that you can see that in Minaj and Peter. And then, oh man, there's a dozen names that come up right away as you talk about having a rock star team that we have here. And yeah, it is. We knew very early on that if the ambition of open is to be widespread and to be ubiquitous, and if we had this grandiose vision for how far we wanted to take the idea of open, that we needed to have the best team possible. And so what Pete really represents on the team from the earliest innings is, aside from his dynamic skill set outside of just uh, engineering, technology, and product, but really we knew that we wanted to build physical spaces, and we knew that we wanted to be in real life with people carrying out these experiences. And we knew that there's just a linear step function that's inherent to building out um, physical locations. And we knew that if we really looked at the customer's journey, that the opportunity set lied in not only being there for the studio environment for an hour long class, let's say, in community, but when people need you for 5-10 minutes in their pocket at any given moment, um, that there be an app that's available for you there. And then eventually, and it's eventually people are going to be interested in more once they have a taste of an hour experience, or a consistent daily practice, and that retreats would need to be available as well. And so with Pete joining the team, what it really validated is that if we had this vision to be both on and offline, that we needed to have in the genetics of the founding team technology built in. And I had worked around technology, but I didn't have the technical capability that Pete does, obviously. And so, just to speak to kind of the magic that started to form with him joining, and then Minaj joining, it was really reinforcing to this idea that, hey, we had this vision for the content that felt really fresh at the time of conceiving open, which was that there's these otherwise disparate modalities, right? Meditation, breath work, under movement, there's all sorts of different lineages, and there's fitness, and there's mobility, and there's conditioning, and there's all sorts of brands that exist out there, and they seem to be having a very separate conversation, almost championing like this is the best version of how you can train and address your well-being. um, and for someone like Minaj to come in and really validate our thinking that actually we need to do the hard work of simplifying for the end user, for the customer, to say, hey, I know the internet is telling you you need to meditate every day, you need to do breath work every day, you need to work out every day, and you need to do it for this long in the morning and for that long at night, and you need to get sun exposure, and you need cold immersion, and you need hot. Like, we're just inundated with all the things that we're supposed to do that are good for us. And we felt like, man, we got to simplify this for people. Someone's got to kind of, broker in the middle and say, okay, we'll translate, we'll reduce, we'll simplify, and we'll create experiences that actually blur the lines. So you don't know, whether this is a full out fitness experience, or is this a mindfulness experience, or is this a breathwork experience? Well, actually, it's all three in one. Come check out our flow. And so, for someone like Manoj, and you spoke to his kind of experience and pedigree as a, renowned meditation teacher, to come in and reinforce this vision, and reinforce the perspective that we have on the content, was really validating. And so, just to round out on the founding team and say, we had this really powerful punch, I think, across technology and the content itself. But the whole in the marketplace really reflects how we formed the initial team. When we looked out there, there might be, in-person brands or companies that, in the pandemic or otherwise, had turned on more digital capabilities, or you had the opposite, more digital apps that tried to have more in-person presence. But it's just who we've been from day one. And I think that the opportunity in the market is to have kind of a single editing voice around the content that shows up really powerfully across both. And I think that still remains the opportunity in the marketplace. And hopefully we're, one of many brands that emerge and kind of address this opportunity, because different brands will speak to different people.
Yeah. Do you see yourself as a technology company or as a health and wellness company? How do you define it?
Yeah, I think I see us as, well, I define technology as magic, basically. And so, in a way, the way we address problems and solutions that we want to achieve in well-being and around the space and the landscape of well-being is through the means of technology. And so, in that way, I believe, we are a technology company that's addressing well-being for people, right? And so it's really just, yeah, hopefully that doesn't feel like dodging the question, but reveals how we think about the role of technology. It's not this thing that sits on the side. It's not, oh, we built an app and that's the technology. The technology is also, how we design the space. The technology is also, the acoustic quality of the room. The technology is also, how are we mixing these different modalities? Breath is a technology. Sound is a technology. Sound takes you into, exacting brainwave states. Like, what is that? That's a technology. So yeah, I think we see the world through the eyes of what's possible when we really leverage all sorts of technologies to achieve, well-being, let's say, as the word
Yeah.
on the other side.
So, Peter, computer science major at Stanford,
Yeah.
obviously great pedigree there. Um, is the technology that you're building for your company only, or is it also a business that you could provide to other types of, services? Is
Sure.
it what's the scalability of the systems?
Yeah, it's there's definitely a temptation. There have been temptations. I mean, if you look at what we've built in just the app and the web environments, from live experiences to shared on-demand practices to, a whole list of other features, like that in and of itself is a surface area that you could see, others might be interested in that kit that we've built. Additionally, we actually went ahead and built out all the studio software. So the booking that's happening on the front end and the back end, all the software related to the studio operations, is also something we've built in-house. And so, uh, you know, just between those two, you have companies that could raise money on their own and kind of market those products. But no, we're pretty focused on continuing to develop the software and the technology for our internal purposes, and to make the end user customer experience even better and delightful. Um, we're very focused on building for ourselves.
Got it.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. When you started in the beginning, uh, what was the thesis, and did you have to make any pivots to where you're at today versus when you thought about the business idea?
Jake, I'm so glad you're giving me the space to address some of that. I mean, even people who've been at the company for so long, I almost hear them use the pivot word sometimes. And we've pivoted, by the way, in so many ways along the ways, in much, I would say, kind of a smaller references. Oh, maybe that's not the right feature, or maybe we should run this many classes in movement and this many classes. It's like, but the broader vision and the broader thesis that we started with, and we engaged with in the earliest days when Pete joined the company, is that we wanted to be an on and offline company that was spreading the wisdom um, of mindfulness and beyond. So physical locations and kind of a digital apparatus were always a part of the vision from the get-go. Now we did end up raising institutional capital on the other side of doing a lot of R&D and testing in the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, and we've raised capital saying this very thing, that we're building out both locations and app. And you know you plan and God laughs. So pandemic hits early 2020, and we can no longer work on the physical locations until further notice. So we got the gift of focus, and so we really focused on the app for the next year, basically the next 2 years, until we were free and clear and could start working on the physical location. So we're very excited. I'm very excited, Jake, to be talking to you today. Um, After realizing something that we have been working on in a lot of ways for years, to truly be a hybrid company.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. COVID had an impact in so many different ways, positives and negatives. But anything that had to do with events or in-person activities had to pivot and try and figure out other ways to continue to building what you're building, or just get out of the business. Glad you were able to find your way. And
Yeah.
now the exciting times of having much more in person and locations is really exciting times, I'm sure. Um, as you look at your experience here, as a leader, as an entrepreneur, there's many times you have to make bold choices and make hard decisions. As you get funding as a company, sometimes you scale up, and sometimes it's too quick, and you have to downsize.
Mhm.
What's been your experience in that process, and what lessons, if any, have you learned that others that are having to go through that can benefit from?
Yeah, no, I think, it's funding is one element of it, and then it's just kind of the macro economic environment and dynamics that play out, where there's just um, a constant um, rhythm of contraction and expansion. And if you're around long enough with your business or your endeavor, you're going to experience those. And so the first response would just be to kind of embrace that as um, an immortal reality, that these expansions and contractions happen. And when I guess, if there's any wisdom to share, is that when you do have to when you have to pull back and you have to reduce, um, that it can be a really painful process in the moment. And it's it's painful for the right reasons, when you're thinking about, oh, you might have to part ways with folks that um, you know you, you would rather not, or I wish you didn't have to be that way. So in the humanity of that, it is painful. Um, but often the anxiety or the fear of that is misplaced, because often what happens is, on the other side of really hard decisions, you end up being leaner, more efficient, more productive, more focused, really, coming out of those kinds of cycles. And you have to bottle up that clarity in the moment. I implore people to, journal and really try to soak in those moments of transition, as a reminder to not get overzealous again, and maybe hire ahead of your skis or spend ahead of the business. And then the last thing I'd mention there is, and I grew up uh, I mean, I moved around a bit in my career, Chicago, Atlanta, Miami, Northwest Arkansas, but I landed in the Bay Area in 2014, 2015. And there were high times that I landed in. I mean, it was just that D2C exuberance, and, year over year, more and more was being poured into uh, venture capital as an asset class. And it was just, people were just raising more money, and it was growth at all costs. And so um, the reminder would be that the fundamentals of what it takes to run a sustainable and healthy business do not change with these cycles. um, your unit economics, and your bottom line, and your ability to reinvest into your future in a healthy way, those fundamentals are the same. And so being really sober and having a real sober mindset and a real kind of clarity of thinking as you move through these cycles, that hey, there might be a lot of exuberance or things might be really slow right now, but the reality is, if I can stay focused on what I know we're here to deliver on, and we keep improving what that is, and we stay really disciplined about how we grow that that you can build something that can truly be evergreen. That's definitely our intention.
Yeah, I agree with that. And there's a lot of companies we work with that grew and continue to grow, and then the market changed and they were caught off guard and had to make some adjustments and downsized and then downsized again. And actually, they have a much more productive team that's more focused, and they deliver really at the same levels, which sometimes adding more doesn't give you 2x, 3x, 5x. It's really, you end up becoming more, I guess, focus, but also you execute differently. So
Yeah.
I think there's some pros and cons. The con to it is that sometimes you downsize too much, and then you have gaps that people are doing more work than they want to do
Right.
or they should do, and the culture then begins to change. The pressure is there, and they're asking to add more people. It doesn't quite happen when they want it.
Yeah.
So we're kind of seeing some of that boomerang trending coming back, where now they kind of need to fill in some of the gaps that you downsized out, and heading into 2004, looking at a little bit more growth. As you look at 2024, you've built a lot. I mean, 1 million sessions to me is incredible, something to be proud of. And for someone who's never built a mobile app to get that much visibility, you're doing a great job on executing your marketing strategy, it sounds like. As you look at the product itself and you look into 2024, what's on the roadmap for growth and new features and functionality, in addition to store locations for Open?
Yes, yeah, I think, and thank you. We're very proud. We have a Slack channel called Why We Do This, where we share testimonials and feedback from our community. And, those are amazing, um, qualitative points of feedback and reminders of what we do matters. But we love that number of sessions, because at the end of the day, that's truly reflects the scale of our work. We can get wrapped up in all the uh, poetry of what these practices have to offer, but at the end of the day, if you just do it, if you just log a session today, and then you do it again tomorrow, and then you do it again, and you know it just works, and there's a compounding effect there. So yeah, we love that total. As we look forward to 2024, the feature set, or what we're thinking about the app, is really how we can become more aware of uh, the individual playing out the experience. So everything from diagnostic information that is passively generated. So, are we thinking about existing hardware players that are, picking up on your heart rate, or, maybe they know something about um, your HRV, or they know something about your sleep patterns. How are we plugging into that information? And that ecosystem is something that we're really curious about. And we're also really curious about how we're plugging into uh, what's going on in your life, period. And, so user input, um, and what we can do to kind of, work off that data and that information that the user is providing to provide the right content at the right time for someone. So that, kind of broader personalization journey is something that we're pretty interested and keen to develop this next year. And on the location side, it's just can we find a couple more locations? In LA is a priority, but we're definitely looking in other markets as well. Um, and so we have some we've generated such an amazing response, and it's been really fulfilling to have this first space on Venice Beach. So we're pretty eager to have a couple more locations as soon as possible.
Great.
Yeah.
You talked about community. Where is your community living? Is it on social networks? Do you have a place where they go and connect with you?
Hmm.
If people wanted to find Open or wanted to find you,
Yeah.
where do they go?
Yeah. So if you we're in the App Store. If you type in open meditation, open breathwork, those kind of qualifiers will help make sure that you can find us in there. We're in Venice Beach. If you are coming through LA, it's a must visit. Come check out our first ever class that we developed, a breath and sound. We're running classes from sunrise to sunset over on the beach there. So come see us there, and follow our Instagram and or TikTok. You can find us under Open pretty easily, and you can follow along with the community there. We have some other elements like WhatsApp groups and things like that, but if you DM the Instagram, we can get back to you and kind of find other ways to stay in touch.
Great. It's probably on the mobile app, but for those that are listening that are interested, what's the cost if I wanted to join and,
Sure.
jump on the app and try it out?
Sure. It's $20 a month. And then we have an annual um, rate of 150. So it breaks down to, much less than 20 if you can make that.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
great. Sign me up. I love that. Well, Raed, God, I want to thank you so much for taking your time to spend with us today. And a big shout out to you for talking about your story and really where it started and where it's headed. And to all of our listeners out there for listening, it means the world to me and to us. And thank you for spending that today with us. As we look going forward, love to catch up with you, Raed, in the future to see how things go and maybe an update on those different locations and
Yep.
how things are progressing with your application. And for the rest, my name is Jake Aaron Villarreal, the host of the show. Look forward to catching up with you all on the next episode. Before we wrap up, I want to give a big shout out to all the entrepreneurs that have joined to make this podcast possible. And for all the listeners for listening. It means the world to me that you chose to spend your time with us today. I'm your host, Jake Aaron Villarreal, signing off for now, but can't wait to connect with you all soon on the next episode. Take care. This show is sponsored by Match Relevant, the company that helps venture-backed startups find the best people in the market, and they do it in 3 simple steps. First, they sit down with founders to understand their story. Second, they tell their story into multiple candidate channels. And third, they schedule interviews within 48 hours. Find us at matchrelevant.com to learn more about how we do it.